What's up, Jets fans? Welcome to the latest edition of Jets Latest, where you get the latest on the Jets, Jets. I'm your host, the spitting statistician, Dane Martinez, and with minicamp now going on, we continue to look at what is going on and really the kind of implicit things that Aaron Glenn has been talking about since he became the head coach of the New York Jets. We've been talking about the team building, the character building, the identity building, right? And he's been talking about how guys are competing, how guys are there, how guys are showing up and learning. And I think that teaching and development is also something that we have been highlighting here on Jets Latest, and really part of the strategy all the way back since free agency. Remember when Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn really targeted younger guys who have shown that they flash potential, maybe high round draft picks, right? And leveraging, believing in the development and the teaching of the coaches to maximize that talent and get better and put them on 1-year deals so that the cap still is flexible, right? So that the Jets can get out of some of them if it doesn't work out. This is the way we are building, and here in minicamp, we are seeing that take root, and we are really trying to be the best version of ourselves as the green and white. But one other player that I really think is going to add to this team is not a free agent signing, but someone who missed a lot of last season, and that is edge rusher Germaine Johnson. Listen to what he had to say about he wanting to grow and what it was like to really miss most of last season. Germaine Johnson says, I want all the pressure on me. I want you guys to trust me to make the plays. And when I went down, I felt like I let the team down. I wasn't there to hold up my end of the bargain. Just watching and seeing some of those games that were close, and I know I could help and be a plus to have on the field. It was hard for me to watch that. I told AG, my main concern is being the best teammate, being the best version of myself, and making up for last year. I think that is really important, right? That work ethic, that want to, the kind of dog that we are talking about, that relentlessness. These are the character traits we have seen and all the guys we've brought in free agency and the guys that they targeted in the draft. And I want to remind people, last year, Will McDonald had a breakout year. Remember, 10.5 sacks, was tied for 12th in the NFL. The Jets had a good kind of ability to pressure the quarterback. Their 39.5% pressure rate was 6th in the NFL, and that was without Germaine Johnson. And let's not forget, when Germaine Johnson last time was a full-time starter, back in 2023, he had 7.5 sacks. He had a 13.3% pressure rate by himself. That was in the top 20 as per PFF in terms of all the edge rushers. He had 11 tackles for loss, and he was one of only 5 guys, edge rushers in the NFL, that showed this kind of well-rounded ability at that position. Had 45 quarterback pressures, had 15 run stops, had 10 tackles for loss, and 5 passes defense, right? So Germaine Johnson is actually more than just an edge rusher. Okay, he is well-rounded, and I really believe that if Germaine Johnson takes the next step that he's talking about, being the best version of himself. We've heard a lot about Will McDonald, who added 15 pounds. We've heard quotes here on Jets Latest about Aaron Glenn talking about how he can set the edge in the run game now even more. These guys both have the ability to maybe get double-digit sacks. Remember, Quinnen in the middle, really being able to put pressure on the quarterback, which I also think is a great match for the man coverage we are looking to play on the back end. Remember, we talk about it here on Jets Latest, the tall, lanky press man coverage that Wilkes and Glenn are going to like to play, and how they've targeted that archetype of corner opposite Sauce Gardner, whether it's Azareye'h Thomas, whether it is Brandon Stevens, right? And it all kind of works together, and that intentionality is something we have continued to talk about. We have also continued to talk about the teaching, the developmental focus that Aaron Glenn has had all the way back to OTAs and rookie minicamp. And Aaron Glenn was talking about that, how it is intentional to quote-unquote load them up early on so that they can start to get those reps, understand it, and then just be athletes. Listen to what Aaron Glenn had to say about this. He goes, listen, we try to load the players up. I know it gets tough on those guys as far as learning everything that we're doing, but my philosophy is give them as much as we can right now. So once we get to training camp, they've heard it already, they're familiar with it. They can say, we've done this, so let's get moving, and they've done a good job with that. I'm making sure we have a laser focus on what we need to do to get better. You heard Josh Reynolds in a previous episode of Jets Latest talking about how Justin Fields was digesting everything pretty quickly, that he was a smart, intelligent player, and that it was a lot, right? We've heard things like with Arian Smith on the teaching of catching the ball. We've heard things like with Mason Taylor, what they call knifing, getting north and south as quickly as possible, right? So these are definite teaching points that are out there, that are happening, that Aaron Glenn is focusing on. And the other part of the culture piece of this is that for minicamp, everyone was in attendance for day one of minicamp, 100%. We even talked about that at like the voluntary minicamps previously, and how I think that's really important for the culture, right? So check this out. Aaron Glenn was actually asked about that because elsewhere in the NFL, that is not the case, right? People are holding out, things of that nature, looking for new contracts. What did Aaron Glenn have to say? Well, first, I can care less about other teams, so I don't know what you're talking about. But our guys come here to compete. I think that is especially important when we talk about two pillars of this franchise, our co-rookies of the year, Garrett Wilson on offense and Sauce Gardner on defense, who, as we know, are kind of in the market looking for contract extensions, yet they are showing up. We've got guys on other teams in the NFL that are in kind of contract negotiations not showing up, whether it's in Cincinnati with Hendrickson or others, right? But also because they are learning so much, having to drink from the fire hose, as it were, right? And they have to kind of get with it. Show that they're all in for this new regime, show that they want to be a part of what is building. I think the 100% attendance is important, and I think the idea that we are just giving it to them, okay? We are loading them up because there's a lot to get to and a lot to kind of internalize so that we can have it ready for the season. This is a new start, a new culture. Everyone has to be there kind of for the original install, right? Part of how that's going to be installed, not only in mini camps, not only in training camps, but we've talked also about preseason, right? Earlier in Jets Latest, I talked about the preseason games. It's going to be August 9th at Green Bay. It's going to be the 16th of August against the Giants, and it's going to be August 22nd against the Philadelphia Eagles. But one of the things I've been saying about the preseason is that these days, a lot of guys as starters don't get a ton of reps in preseason games. Instead, what teams are now opting to do is have a week of joint practices with another team, and that seems to be where the starters are getting more reps, ones versus ones, really kind of more to full speed, almost than even some of the preseason games. All right, because it's a more controlled environment. There's less risk for injury. They can do exactly what they want to do, run it back, teaching points, get that right. I thought it was interesting. Aaron Glenn said on the first day of minicamp, they kind of announced that they are going to do those joint practices, and it's going to be against the New York Giants. This is a good thing to me for a number of reasons. One, because when you got New York, maybe there's a little added element of spice there. You know, we see all the time in these joint practices that sometimes we get fights going on, you get, kind of that level of intensity ramped up. And I think just doing it with the crosstown rival even adds a little bit more to that to make it as close to, not a game situation, it's not going to be that, but there'll be a little bit of juice there. And I think that is important. There are going to be two joint practices. The Giants are going to host one, and the Jets will then host one. That will be leading up to, like I said, the Snoopy Bowl on August 16th. So there you have it. That's another edition of Jets Latest. I want you to, once again, like these videos, subscribe to the Jets Latest channel, tell a Jets fan friend to tell a Jets fan friend, because now that we have mini camp going on, we are starting to get rolling. And as you can see, we are taking this opportunity not lightly, as a very important piece. Everybody from the coaching staff thinking it's important to kind of get everyone on board, to the players, even leaders like Sauce and Garrett Wilson are putting themselves out there, even though they are working on contracts extensions. And I think Germaine Johnson is a key guy that sometimes we forget about. We talk about all the studs on defense. We talk about Quinnen Williams. We talk about Quincy Williams and Sherwood and Sauce, right? And even to a certain extent, what we are seeing out of Will McDonald on one edge. But don't forget, Germaine Johnson was really on the precipice of kind of being at that level himself, at least when we last saw him in 2023. He has recovered from the Achilles, and he is going to be a real part of this defense. A defense I think is going to work kind of symbiotically together and still be one of the best units in the NFL. We will continue to see this throughout minicamp, throughout training camp, and even into the preseason. Listen, if you want to hear more from me, the spitting statistician Dane Martinez, remember, I am the host of the FTN Fantasy Show over on Sirius XM. It's channel 87, which is the fantasy channel. So we do more than just talk to Jets, okay? Because now that football's on the horizon, fantasy football is on the horizon, okay? Draft season is getting upon us. If you want the winning edge to know who to pick to win your leagues and win that cash, I am here for you. We also talk fantasy baseball. We talk NBA finals. We talk all sorts of stuff to get you ready. And FTN is a great website with a lot of tools, a lot of data, a lot of great content, a great Discord as well to really make you a better sports bettor and fantasy player. But we will continue to talk about what we see now that mini camp is going on. Tomorrow we've got people at the microphone. Aaron Glenn is talking, the coordinators are talking, and we will see, we're seeing highlights. Garrett Wilson making incredible catches, right? AZ Thomas continuing to shadow guys. It is really starting to come together in what should be a really fun season and a new feeling for the green and white. So stick here because we've got a great feeling on Jets latest. We'll see you about that more tomorrow. But for now, we out of here. Peace.